If everybody's here, we're gonna go ahead and start the meeting on time at 5:30. Can I get someone to make a motion to...
Recording in progress.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. To review and accept the agenda, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Barbara. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Debbie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Leo?
Incoming BM line from
Anybody objecting? Any abstentions?
being info.
Okay.
Jail.
We have an agenda. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. I don't have any reach outs for this board, but is there anybody who would like to speak to us? Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
I noticed on the December 25 reach out report, we did have 6 submissions in December. And I was just curious, the time that it took to respond was 39 hours. And I don't have any frame of reference if that's like a normal amount of time to respond. And who monitors the RNESU board submissions?
That would be Jill, Judy, because she's our, takes care of all the reach outs. She's the one who would forward them to you if you had one. And then we respond back to her when we responded.
So did you get any of those?
I'm sure, well, not from RNESU, no.
And do you think 39 hours is acceptable for a response?
Well, 39 hours is less than 2 days.
Yeah.
2 business day or 2 full days. So, yes, I don't.
If they came in on the weekend too,
Right.
there wouldn't necessarily be a next day response.
I mean, I think our plan is to always respond. My plan is to respond within 48 hours. I don't do it immediately.
48. Okay. That's our goal.
Not necessarily.
I just noticed some of the other response times were really short, so I just didn't know what that was about.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Superintendent is very fast.
Yep. All right. So any other discussion about public comment? Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. Can I get someone to make a motion, please?
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Barbara, is there a second?
Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, we've passed the consent agenda. We're going to start with our presentations. We are going to start with the RNESU and Rutland County Restorative Justice Center collaboration, as we have a guest, Margaret Gangley. Is that how you say that? I might say it wrong.
Maggie.
Maggie. She was my well, it says Margaret. So anyway, okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Renee if you want to introduce her. That would be great.
Sure. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Let me. Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and get started. I'll let Maggie introduce herself shortly. We're really excited to be here to talk about this collaboration that the Rutland County Restorative Justice Center and RNESU have embarked upon. It is a 5-year collaboration. You will hear a little bit more about it as we get through our presentation. But one of the things that is required of all school districts in the state of Vermont through the new education quality standards is to make sure that we're incorporating restorative practices in our everyday instruction of students. And so Maggie and I saw this opportunity as a way to create this, just kind of a way for us to start working together to help our students, to help our schools feel more belonging. And so with that, Maggie, if you could introduce yourself, and then we'll get started with the presentation.
Sure thing, Renee. So I'm Maggie Gangley. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the executive director for the Rutland County Restorative Justice Center. And I really appreciate you all having me here today.
So one of the things that that we are going to start doing for all of our presentations for each of our boards is tying every presentation to our global ends, and if there's a connection to our focus areas and a connection to something having to do with state law, we are going to go ahead and tie our presentations to that as well. So within the RNESU Global Lens, the restorative justice collaboration falls within these categories of special education, our curriculum instruction and assessment, superintendent's office, and then our school-based staff that's budgeted centrally. And the ability that restorative justice and restorative practices can bring to our student body will really help us achieve our success in all 5 of our focus areas. So within the new EQS document that started this year, it provides a very strong definition of what restorative practices are. And those are the things that refer to whole school relational approaches to building school climate, addressing student behavior that fosters belonging over exclusion, social engagement over control, and meaningful accountability over punishment. So that is the way that the state defines restorative practices. And then also within the curriculum development and instructional practices, it's expected that we promote personalization and high expectations so that each student may engage successfully with the curriculum delivered in order to meet graduation requirements. And then it's a very long section, making sure that we're fostering a positive classroom culture using restorative practices when appropriate. And so knowing the way that we are defining it, and we had to make sure that as we're bringing this idea to what's going on within our schools, we wanted to make sure that it aligns with Rutland County Restorative Justice Center's definition as well as the definition throughout the state.
Yep. So restorative justice principles, as defined by the state bodies that dictate what restorative justice is, that's Department of Corrections, Department of Children and Families, as well as the Attorney General's office, had a working group come together, and it was a statewide working group, and they define restorative justice principles as crime being a violation of people in relationships, that the violations create obligations between those people who harmed and those people who are harmed. And then restorative justice is inserted when it engages victims, offenders, and community members, and all the people who are affected by crime in an effort to put things right. And so that's a very watered down way, basically, of saying that when things happen, we want to make sure that, one, the least amount of harm is done going forward, because inherent in relationships there's harm, and two, that whatever was done, we can make someone whole again in a way that is inclusive of all of the people who have been harmed or have witnessed the harm. That includes the ripple effect, basically, when something happens, and it doesn't have to be a crime, it could be any form of harm, that those who it happens to and their families and the community, like a pebble, you drop it in and it ripples out. So for us in Rutland County specifically, we're an agency that has over $1 million operating with 15 programs that help Rutland County move towards restorative justice through transformative justice, which overall reduces harm in our county as a whole. And so what that basically means is that we practice restorative justice every single day and work to transform opportunity that folks have, as well as make sure that systems that are larger and can harm people, that folks have the ability to be not in those systems because they can engage with more trauma as they go through them. And so for us, that's something that happens a lot in schools. It's really hard to take a lot of people and put them all together and have a successful community. And that's hard in any place, any space. And so what we do is try to reduce the amount of harm as much as possible. And not if, but when harm does happen, because humans in relationship have harm inherent in that. They have the ability to respond in ways that really help folks move forward, move on, and create the least amount of pain. So it's very much not just a training or even principles. It is a practice. So, and we found that there was pretty great alignment with the school district in general. So our collaboration origin, Renee, I don't know if you want to start because you were the one that reached out to me first.
Yeah, so I was at a meeting at Otter Valley, and one of the participants in that meeting suggested that I reach out to the Restorative Justice Center and to Maggie specifically in order to learn more about Otter Valley and RNESU as a whole. And so when I did, in our conversation, we began realizing that we have a lot of the same, as Maggie mentioned earlier, we have a lot of the same goals that we expect for our students. And if there was a way that we could address proactively the needs that our students have, then we can take care of them while they're in our school, rather than the Restorative Justice Center have to take care of them once they're out of school. And so in order to do that, we realized that if we could start collecting data, if we could come up with a uniform way of defining what restorative practices and what restorative justice means within our school district, then we would have the ability to really provide the needed belonging that our students, that we can engage our students with, so that way they would be more likely to come to school, they'd be more likely to stay in school and be successful once they leave us. And so prior to organizing this presentation, we had an idea, but we wanted to kind of summarize it in this vision of, collecting the quantitative and qualitative data that shows that restorative practices could bring about change if everyone operated from the same definition and understanding. And so we knew that we would have the ability to get information. So what it looks like now, once we were able to kind of put it into practice, is getting in front of our principals, getting in front of our teachers, and then that gets us to the information gathering and the system needs that Maggie has been able to find already.
Yep. So for us, the first thing we wanted to do was a survey of teachers, and we had a fairly good response rate. Just over a third of teachers responded to an anonymous survey asking them about belonging. Because for me, while we want to center the youth, in order to do that, we need to make sure that teachers, one, have the capability to hold spaces that aren't just classroom spaces, but spaces where people feel like they belong. And then also that, they feel safe and comfortable in the environment that they're in. And so in that, in a vision of belonging, Renee and I kind of outlined what that would look like together and then sent this survey out. And what we found when we got this survey results back, and we did not draw lines from the schools, just because there is some identity information in here, and we didn't want anyone to feel like their identities were being disclosed in this. So this is a culmination of the schools. The biggest challenge that we see as a third party is actually that your teachers are really burnt out, and that probably isn't super shocking information, but I'm saying burnt out at a rate of 50%, and that's of those who took the survey. And we use the three definitions you see, burnout, vicarious trauma, and compassion fatigue. We literally had those in the survey. So they had to personally identify with and then mark as 3, 4, or 5. So from average to high on their feeling of identifying with that. And so you had 50% that said they were burnt out, 20% with vicarious trauma, and 32% with compassion fatigue as defined. The highest rates were among 27 to 35-year-old educators and staff at 100%. The mental and physical health workers, so your counselors, your nurses, etc., we're at 70%, and then your 2ST LGBTQIA plus community at 75, that did identify at 75% for your entire district. Those are pretty stark numbers about this. And so we went in to do our first training as normal, just to get a baseline of where people felt like they were with restorative justice, de-escalation, and equity. And we were met with pretty incredible pushback, mostly from folks who didn't understand why we were there, or who we were, or why this was happening, what was happening. And that they knew these things already, but it became really clear to us really quickly that even if they did know them, they didn't really maybe have the ability to practice them in that moment, and it's probably because they're really burnt out. And so to me, when someone's activated in that kind of way, I need to figure out what's activating them, because I can give you 7 million trainings. I can give you the best training in the entire world. And if you don't have the ability to hold the space related to restorative justice because you are so burnt out from whatever it is, then it's not going to do anything for you. This isn't enrichment at this point. I would say for your district, this is survival. And this is hopefully what is going to help get y'all on track so people know what to expect, know what to have going forward. And when Renee approached me, it was totally in a place of like, we need help. And so, and we want fair and equal responses, and we want the best for our students. And what we kind of uncovered even more is that your educators need just as much help as your students do in some ways. And they are the resource, and so we went to listening circles, which is what we're hoping to do from March to June. I had just sent out emails to the principals where schools and listen to the teachers, and I will gather information, again, completely anonymously, and we will look for solutions. We'll be modeling social emotional learning skills and circles, and allowing teachers to have place and space, because there's some stuff that is inherent to teaching, and people need to decide if that's things they're willing to deal with. And there are some things also that people can fix, but sometimes it's really scary to speak up. So giving them open space and forum to move forward with the understanding that we're going to try to help with what we can, and at the same time, we're not going to be able to shift every single piece, but what can we do to help everyone feel like they belong? And that's going to start with your teachers. So just like I mentioned before, Renee had mentioned the 5-year collaboration. This is no cost to the district. It's actually built in if people ask for it from certain grants that we have. Through our Balanced and Restorative Justice grant, we can do restorative education, and our Vermont Department of Health grant for violence prevention, we can do the equity and de-escalation work. And we also were just funded separately to do this phase 2 of the project of the listening circles at $75,400 by the VPLO, the Vermont Prevention League Organization, to hold the circles that are outlined on the charts below, again, which was sent to the principals just yesterday. So the approximate value I have for you, and this is pretty conservative, is $230,000 for what your district is receiving in services that they are not paying for necessarily, but are built into services that the state can pay for through restorative justice. So what we're going to do is basically hold these circles, and we're going to listen, and we're going to learn, and we're going to teach skills at the same time, and everyone will get facilitation guides as well, and we'll be there along the way. So if they want to practice or see that, I'd love to go into classrooms and see what people are doing. I want to meet with tricky kids. We already work with the at-risk truant, DCF involved, those kids who really are hitting the system in any kind of way that's massively impactful to them or their, classmates or community. We work with those kids. They pretty much have family court, and then they come to us. So we definitely know the population, work with the population, and work in most of the schools already.
Or did you want me to go back to the previous one?
Just the previous slide, just the data. So I'm going to gather data from that, like I said, but it's going to be qualitative, and there will be some quantitative to it as well, just in marking of social emotional learning skills. That again, just like this kind of data, it's very removed in a way, again, to protect people, because anonymity does make people have more honesty in a lot of ways. And it's a really hard time to be in any systems. It doesn't matter how good they are. Sometimes it's really hard to speak up. So, now I'm good. Thanks, today.
You're welcome. And so I wanted to make sure that you saw this. So Maggie just finished talking about number one, but we also want to make sure that we're tracking this. You know, we're taking the baseline data this year, and then we'll be able to share out any kind of improvement or any kind of change along the way, so that way we'll be able to show not only our boards, but also the grant funders that are working with the Restorative Justice Center, so that they can see how well their funding of the center is helping the students and the educators within our school district that serves both Addison and Rutland County. And so that's it. We'd love to have any questions that you may have.
Questions?
Okay.
I knew it. So I looked right at you.
I'm very confused. And perhaps I have an understanding of restorative justice that is off. I think of it as a kid, for example, does something bad, and instead of getting detention, they have to meet with the person who was hurt and say they're sorry and learn about their actions and have a conversation about how they can do better next time, and maybe do some project or something to show that they've learned their lesson. I don't see how that connects to what I just saw in this presentation at all. So please tell me what I'm misunderstanding, or redefine.
So Kevin, I think what you described, and Maggie backed me up, that you described essentially like a process, kind of like that. It could be, and that could be disconnected from the mindset and the belief that restorative practices actually can bring about that belonging. What you described was just another form of kind of checking the box that you did some sort of discipline practice. And so what we're hoping to do is create a system that does account for that, but also incorporates de-escalation techniques before we even get to that point where that student is skipping that class or doing other things.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that assessment as well. That's certainly a process. It's actually a program called diversion, and they have it for pre, post, and post-incarceration for adults and for youth. We hold those programs as well, and that is 2 of the 15 programs we do.
Okay, I'm still not understanding what actually is going to be happening. And I'm going to throw something out you probably want to debunk, but the survey you did with the high numbers of burnout among especially among younger people. I know a lot of people who work in social service agencies and social justice agencies, and there's a tendency as they get older to develop a thicker skin. I'm not sure that's a bad thing entirely. So are we talking about young people having, tender hearts here as opposed to a crisis in morale? And I'm interested in understanding what the numbers might have been for the, more experienced teachers if they feel differently about the whole situation.
Yeah, so I can totally give you an example with the data. So I can't pull that up right at this moment. It would just take me a little while, but it's 100% of the 25 to 37 range, I believe is what I'd said. So if 100 people took the survey, let's say that, let's say even 50 of those people, like half the people are, of that age. And then the other 50 also are, of every other age group, every other age bracket. You still, even percentage-wise with 100%, even if it's like everyone else said, oh, we are like, or most of them said we're totally good, you're still going to have 25% of all of those others. So still 1 in 4 of your teachers are identifying as burnt out that are advanced educators, which is not good either.
Well, I understand that, but I'm also asking a question about why, do you have a theory about why younger people might be more prone to feeling this way than people who've been in the system for a long time? And because, intuitively you'd think that, oh, somebody's been at this for 30 years, they're more likely to be burned out than a young and enthusiastic person. So that reversal, it seems like it's something that should be investigated to me.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why we pointed it out, is when you see those, typically it's because there's some level of correlation, between those different pieces, for sure.
And I think that's the what we're hoping to find in the listening circles, so that way, as the Restorative Justice Center is able to get more qualitative data informally through those circles, we'd be able to flesh out what those surveys said.
And that leads to my final question, because the listening circles frankly sound like group therapy to me, and I'm wondering about the connection between, okay, we have these teachers and staff members who are unhappy and feeling burnt out and feeling unsupported and so forth and so on. And it's a good thing to work to make them feel better. I don't see the connection between that and restorative justice. They seem like two different problems, yes.
Yeah. Maggie, it's Debbie. I have a possible example that might help with this based on a classroom, if you'd like me to share, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong.
If you'd like to, Debbie, I'm also happy to answer.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, Kevin, that's your name, right?
Yes.
So I want you to imagine a first responder who is going into a situation. And when they go into the situation, they don't take a deep breath and they don't survey the scene because they don't remember to, even though it's a skill they have. They're going to put themselves, the other person, and other people around them in pretty intensive danger, right? And so this is an extreme example. In the same way, when someone goes into a classroom and someone has an extreme response to something, let's say a kid throws a desk or something, if you yourself aren't grounded or able to maintain being grounded or de-escalated, if you are operating from a place of burnout, you typically have a higher rate of not being able to access the skills and tools that you have. And so what this is doing is trying to see why teachers have that higher rate of stress, that higher rate of burnout, the vicarious trauma, etc., so that Renee, Debbie, the principals, etc., can say, oh, this is generally what my school needs. And they're for each individual school. So people will understand what it is that their school needs in order to assist their teachers maybe in coming down or back off of that and feeling more comfortable and secure in the way that they respond and how they respond and being able to access the response. Because I don't know if you've ever had something happen to you and immediately went to super angry and responded, and then when you looked back at it, you were like, maybe that wasn't the best choice. So what we're doing here is trying to see where teachers are at so we can help them access the part of their brain that holds space, which is the processes you were talking about, and moves them forward. So what we're trying to do is not therapy, though techniques that you use in social and emotional learning don't have to be therapy to be therapeutic, but those are two different things entirely. So it's certainly not therapy. But I'm not sure if that assists you, and if Debbie, you have an answer as well, I'd be happy to hear it.
And no, I appreciate that lens, Maggie. The one thing that I was thinking about in the classroom ties in with this. It's just a different lens. This was John Kidda that I got this from, is that when you have these circles in your classroom, the idea is that when there's a relationship damaged from a lot of things, that in order to build it, in order to help mend that, it's best done if there's a community built already. So if you're regularly in a classroom, sort of circling up in the morning, having sort of that norming process of how you speak and treat one another in the circle, you can actually begin to start having more challenging conversations in the classroom because you sort of built that community. Then when that thing happens, hopefully it doesn't, but when it does, you've built that community. So it's kind of two different lenses, but that's another reason to have sort of those circles, is to be able to develop sort of a community and some expectations for how folks treat one another.
Okay.
So to be able to do the work. So just another lens.
Debbie, did you have a question?
I do. Maggie, I'm another Debbie in the room. I have a question for you about the, going back to the EQS standards. I was looking at those, but they're quite text dense, so I wasn't sure if I pulled out the main objective or purpose of doing this program. I'm guessing is to enable our educators to practice restorative justice. So give them professional training, professional development on restorative justice. And is that, you're shaking your head, so that part I understand. Is that something that your organization provides to our educators? Or is that something that we'll be looking for outside resources to do?
When you say provides, do you mean will we be coming in and holding circles? Is that what you're asking?
Well, to teach restorative justice.
Yep, that's something that we provide, which is when we outlined the amount of money that it would usually cost, but it is something we can do. It's just not something all schools necessarily tap into.
Okay. But that is the objective, is to be able to empower our educators to use restorative justice practices throughout the system.
That's long term.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
that's the long term. That's why we say it's a 5-year project, because it's a culture shift. It's not just a training, and that's the issue here, that I think a lot of folks think you can come in and teach a restorative circle practice and then leave. And the reality of it is it's a lot more complex than that. If you look at a lot of things that do restorative justice as a whole, like when schools, I always mess up the acronym, Renee, it's like the MRBS. It's like another restorative training that folks go in, and they basically do what we're doing. And in order to do that, they'll send a teacher, and it's like a $10,000 training, and the teacher has to do it for 2 years, and then they come back and they have to teach everybody, and that usually takes 3 to 5 years. And so basically what we're doing is that, but without the cost to your district. So,
and conducting a lot of research and assist and helping us implement the findings from that research without any extra cost to the district.
So offline, I'll send you, I've been in talks with Vermont Law and Graduate School about their restorative justice reform, with their Justice Reform Center. And so I know that they are offering, and they're getting ready to launch a restorative justice facilitation class in the spring and the summer. And they're targeting especially schools and educators for this training, and they're going to be offering CEUs as well. So I'm happy to, if you don't, I'm sure you probably already work with them, but if you would like, I'm happy to introduce you to them.
yeah, no, we actually, the restorative certificate program that they do, we have access to for free, all of our practitioners. Great. So you can go and you can get their certification, their master's level certification for free through any restorative justice center if you're an employee.
Perfect. Great.
I'm still stuck on kind of basic definitional things. And the slide that is, it just says restorative justice at the top, the definition slide.
Yes.
21.
Is it?
Sorry.
No, it's just I'm making sure that it's being shared. Is it being shared?
Yes. So,
Okay.
2120 and 2120.1
Right.
talks about teaching and classroom learning. Each student successfully engaged with the curriculum, and then all these practices such as multiple academic perspectives, teaching kids to synthesize narratives, trying to use their lives in some way that fits in with the course. All great instructional ideas. I still don't understand what it has to do with justice or.
So if I had put in the entire thing, there's like you see how the last thing on the page is parenthetical N,
Yep.
fostering a positive class. So between A and M, there are other things that their educators are to be supported in. So N, make sure that we are utilizing we are creating a positive classroom culture utilizing these practices that we are working with the Restorative Justice Center. Because again, this conversation began with this idea of coming up with a unified or a uniform definition across all of our campuses. So for restorative practices, which could help us increase the inclusivity and the belonging, and thus the improving the student outcomes for all of our students. And so if the state is saying that restorative practices can foster a positive classroom culture, then that is effectively one of the reasons why we're doing this. Okay. And so the connection between the restorative justice, as described by your definition earlier, and restorative practices from the state really is just a way of making sure that we are approaching this as a very welcoming, inclusive school system. And so what we will do over the next 5 years is look at ourselves, reflect upon where we are with the data that we have from whether it's surveys or the circle approach, or even the outcome data that we identified in the last slide. Right now, if we're basing this solely on attendance, chronic absenteeism, and graduation rates, we have a lot of work to do. And
Yes.
so if the state believes that restorative practices, and by an extension restorative justice, is a way to foster a positive classroom climate, and they believe in it so much that it's in the educational NEQS, then we really need to be introspective in how we're saying that we're using it on our campus, and if we are utilizing it to its fullest extent by every employee, every educator, and for every student.
Okay, so fostering a sense of community in a classroom and a sense of mutual obligation among everybody in the room are certainly worthy goals and probably need to be pursued with great vigor. I'm just still not making the connection. I mean, you're saying the state has made that connection. I believe you. Maybe I'm just hung up on the word justice. I don't understand. I just don't understand the connections.
Maggie, do you think you could? I know that you've explained that to our principals, that the connection between the restorative justice and restorative practices. So, if you could take that one.
Yeah, so the practices are literally just that. They're the practice of restorative justice. So restorative justice in and of itself is not, it's not a training. It's a mindset. It's a way of being. It's, moving through with the least amount of harm possible to folks. And when the harm happens, making sure that there is a just response that is in accordance with the community and those who are harmed. without the involvement of mostly greater criminal justice institutions. So it's another arm of the entire justice system. So when you're looking at practices, when they're saying practices where appropriate, it's just saying employing that arm of the justice system.
Okay, well, I still don't get it, but I think we pursued this as far as we can in this meeting, and I don't want to be wasting other people's time, so.
We can bring it back up at another time too.
Yeah.
If you want. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this as we move forward.
Yeah, we'll be coming back at the end of the year when we have more data in place.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Did anyone else have any other questions? Leo or Greg? Barbara?
Lou?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Maggie, for being here today with us.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Meg.
Have a good one.
You too. We're going to move on to another presentation, overview of student support services.
Sure, that's me.
Okay.
All right. And there is the presentation, and I do have a document. I don't know. There's a presentation, right?
Renee has it.
Renee's gonna put it up. Perfect.
Yeah, let me, for whatever reason, I don't have that one open, so let me open, it's this one. Okay, can you see the Therapeutic Center presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Brian, just tell me when you would like for me to switch the slides.
Perfect. Will do. So this is a little bit more of a deep dive into the kind of the vision about our Sudbury campus and how it's going to serve students with disabilities in RNESU, the current needs that we're having, the current landscape of Vermont and serving students with disabilities, and it's all interconnected. To go back in history, currently the previous director created two sites, one at the Sudbury School and one at North Campus. They primarily focus on two different populations of students with significant needs. Sudbury primarily serves students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and the North Campus right now primarily serves students with emotional and behavioral needs. And rightly, we can't really put the two populations together in one school in Sudbury, so we decided to do that. Fast forward to last year in our special education audit. Our special education audit suggested that we for various reasons that I've discussed before, that we move our students who are currently at Sudbury and to the campus, and we move our population of students with emotional and behavioral needs to Sudbury. And it'll be up to the administration, I guess, and the board for what to do with North Campus. But my thing has been, we're not going to. There's lots of reasons, safety concerns, but the North Campus does have quite a history to it, and there's more reasons than that. But Renee, oh yes, perfect. So the overarching idea is we are seeing an increase in intense behaviors and safety concerns amongst our school, and really the reason to have a student off campus, not in their general education with their peers, is because of safety and behavior and their impact on the entire school environment. There is when a student is unsafe to that extraordinary extent, they don't have the tools. They don't have, they're not getting the counseling and the therapy that they need. They're not getting the tools put in their toolbox. So if the schools can't keep the school environment safe, we need to find another place for them to get those tools and to get those skills. Previously, in the past, we've sent students of this nature to Baird, to Allen Street campus, to VAC. Those are no longer options for us. Either Baird is really far away and extraordinarily costly. Our last student we sent there was between transportation, which is very difficult to find. It was, it was 100, and it was a lot, well over $100,000. And VAC it has extraordinary wait lists, and Allen Street is not even entertaining out of district. They're only serving their own now. So A, we don't have options. And B, it's cheaper, and it's really important for our students to, even if they're not attending, say they're a Neshabie student and they're not able to, they don't have the tools to attend Neshabie to stay safe, it's important that these students remain connected with their campuses, whether they're a LoFSUP student, an OCA student, and this is, so a therapeutic campus, as the slide says, it's small, supportive, and it's really intensive development in emotional regulation, behavior, mental health in order to succeed academically. And it is generally a placement done by an IEP team or a team of students. I'm not going to say we only accept this disability or this type of student, or I'm not going to put any. These are done by individualized teams in working with me as the LEA and the administrator of the program. And then we kind of see, and it's not a sentence. It's not we're going to move this student because we don't want this student in the school anymore. That's not what schools get to say. It is a temporary placement until those skills are gained to re-enter back with their non-disabled peers. And there are different things we can do. We can do partial programming. We can do the great thing about being in the community is we can do a special. We can do partial integration. See how it goes. See how we're feeling. Seeing how those skills are. Being in district gives us a lot more opportunities, and it saves money. Can you go on to the next slide, please, Renee? Okay, so this is our Renee. So this is
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I added this to your presentation just so that the goal is that we have our students, because all of our students should be graduating, and so we wanted to make sure that they have the opportunity to meet the graduation requirements in an accommodated or modified manner. And so this is just me making sure that we're, again, bringing EQS into the discussion as to why we need to be able to serve our students in our small therapeutic school along the way, so that way they can gain the skills as you described previously, Brian, so that they can be successful on their campuses.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, and what I forgot to say is we want all of our students on campus. There are lots of reasons to do that. Access to services, access to the nurse, access to specials, school events, being part of the community, regardless of your disability. That's what we want for every student. It's just not every student is ready for that. And I also want to talk a little bit about the continuum of care and service in our RNESU. It is important, especially in today's educational environment, that RNESU offers our own continuum of care and service. In other words, we have, and learning environments, we have our most restrictive environment to our least restrictive environment, and it's important that we have, depending on the student's unique needs, it's important that we have a place for them to live and learn, and then so we can eventually move them to lesser restrictive environments. That's always our goal. For every student to be in learning in the general education room, learning with their non-disabled peers. That's always our goal. We do have a continuum. So this therapeutic campus would be a more restrictive environment, but we have others, and the intention is for it to serve primarily elementary students, age students. And the idea would be if those skills are needed, the emotional and behavioral needs are being met, then when 7th grade comes along, we are working on not only a middle school alternative program, we're working on that at the middle school, and then in high school, Michael Ruppel's done a great job developing the Foothills program. So, and on top of that, we are building a life skills program for elementary at RNESU, and we have already existing a high school life skills that you may see out in the community and have been very much established. And I know Andrea is on right now. What Andrea is going to do is a lot of that programming that she and Emmy have built over the last several years. We're going to be able to transfer that knowledge, expertise, materials, planning, curriculum, and whatnot to an elementary life skills, which we're articulating as pathfinders, and it's going to be great. So that's just a description of our continuum of services in RNESU, and but it's important to understand why the therapeutic and how it fits in to how we're supporting our most vulnerable students in RNESU. How are we keeping our students in district, in their community, in a fiscally responsible way? And by doing this, we're actually saving money. Because if there were any outside placements, they would be more expensive, and transportation is impossible to find. I'm a McKinney Vento liaison, I know this, and so there are lots of reasons to serve our kids here in RNESU. Not to mention quality control. We know that we're offering high quality services and education. We don't necessarily know that when we send a student out of state or out of district. Can you go to excellent. So the therapeutic campus, who will attend? I haven't, like I said, I don't want to put a disability on it. I don't want to put a plan on it. But it does, there has to be a requirement of a therapeutic component. This is really intended not for a student to flip a desk and then for the school team to say, oh, not here, let's get them over to Sudbury. That's not what this is. There has to be, the school has to have exhausted their school-based supports. They've completed cycles of school-based intervention. There is a maintained FBA and a behavior intervention plan. If there's no plan, that means they haven't exhausted their tools. Yeah.
What's an FBA?
Excellent. A functional behavioral analysis.
Okay.
So that's what so when a student is starting to have behaviors, you'll want to, that'll kind of take data and a team to look at it and see why is the student doing this? What are the triggers? What is the hypothesis of the behavior, and what are going to be some suggested interventions? The behavior plan is the BIP is a behavior intervention plan, and that kind of summarizes our interventions, how we're going to approach it, our crisis plan, what are our replacement behaviors. So if the student is flipping a desk, what is it's physical aggression? What do we want to replace that with? And it really pulls the team together to address these very challenging behaviors. Also, the need is around therapy. We have Dr. Jones that's going to be helping provide that therapy next year, and we're building the team to provide that emotional support. Also there are situations that are in my mind. We do currently have out of state placements. We do that have gone through the local interagency team, through the state interagency team, that have been placed by the state out of district. When those students return, we didn't do that. I did not do that. That's a process done by the state. But when those students return to the community, it is up to me to educate them. It's not up to me, but it's up to us to educate. So when we have a student come from residential that needs a step-down program, the therapeutic program would be a great option for them. Really to have that wraparound care. We don't want to go from the most restrictive out of district placement to the classroom. That's too big of an ask for the child and the family. Again, school teams, families are involved the whole way, and the number is small. We're planning for around, at maximum 10 students, and that's what we'll have planned for. You know, if we have open seats, other SVSU does this. If we have open seats, it looks like we would offer those seats to other districts for this reason, and we would have revenue. So, but we do care for our own first. Okay, can you, what would a typical day look like? So I was recently able to visit Allen Street, which is doing a great job with this work with older students. What they're doing is kind of what I was thinking. They have a really great, they have academic blocks, then they have, they have a lot of physical activity, they have motor activity, they have I'm not saying we're doing this, but they have a skateboard ramp and a pump rack and a frisbee golf course. They have lots of things there, and they've been working on that program for years now.
Where is this?
Allen Street campus. That's the Rutland City
Hospital.
Public Schools therapeutic program.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I visited them and their staff, and they were wonderful. We do have a student placed there who got in before they said no more out of district. So we do. There's the academic component. There's there's the movement and body. They also. I'm not saying we're doing this, but they prepare their own food. The students prepare the food, which is really interesting. Again, I'm not saying we're going to do that, but I would like components of this. And then they have experiential learning as well. They go off and do different things. I'm big into things that I personally am passionate about, and I have the vision are things like trout in the classroom and raising trout. And
I was wondering, what the heck is trout in the classroom?
Yeah.
That's what we call the kids now.
Yeah. All the kids. And things like makerspace, and there's a lot, like the main focus, the main idea is we need to build our students up. Our students that are vulnerable and they're hurting, and we need to do everything we can to build them up. A lot of times they have behaviors in the schools, and and then they feel like they're not wanted. We need to build them up. So hands-on learning. I'm just as a former science teacher, that's all I did all the time. It's what I'm passionate about. And at North Campus right now, the staff has done a great job making a makerspace and whatnot. So and nature-based learning as well. There's lots of stuff that we can do at
The
Sudbury.
things that Brian mentioned are happening at some of our schools already, like Trout in the Classroom is at Oka. Yeah.
My intended staff right now are 2 special educators, 1 academic, 1 focus. I mean, everybody does everything, but 1 academic and 1 behavioral. A clinical psychologist, which I mentioned was Dr. Jones. A mental health coordinator, Taylor Lamphere is our mental health coordinator. I'm working with her specifically to focus on family support and parent support, because the family is a huge component to this plan. We have to support the family. And in my work with families in this position so far, often they're struggling, just as school teams are struggling, they're struggling too. And they're struggling with more than just the behaviors, they're struggling with so many other things. And things are very complex in homes right now. And having Taylor support them is a really powerful thing, along with coordinated service plans and whatnot, with coordinating services for them. We'll have, depending on need and enrollment, I would like to have both some para-educators and intervention specialists, with the intervention specialists having some additional training as behavior technicians. I do SLP support. I'm talking with the SLP team to figure out, again, it's going to depend on our need. And I am working with the BCBA on a consultant retainer basis to help us. A certified behavior analyst, a board certified behavior analyst. So.
SLP.
Oh, I'm sorry, speech and language pathologist. Yeah.
Yeah, these are on me. I should have. I had meant to put the full words in there. That's my fault. Sorry.
I swim in acronyms in my dreams. But all staff, we have, and I like to say sustained training, not just a one-off in the beginning. I want this program to be, a shining star for RNESU, where I'm getting calls from Slate Valley and I already got a call from GRCSU last year. I want this to be a shining star. For us to be proud, we have to have sustained trainings in trauma-informed practices, our CPI de-escalation, student safety, and I know we just talked about restorative practices. Restorative practices in this is I call it repair. We break it, we fix it. That's kind of how I think of it at the school level. We destroy the classroom, we fix the classroom. If we destroy a relationship, we figure out how to repair that relationship. It's not that we don't hold the students accountable, because we do, but that's a really important, if we're going to live and learn together, I've always said, that's what we have to do.
Are those positions new positions? No.
So that's another budgetary thing I should make very clear. When I propose my RNESU budget, I'm using resources I already have for this. So I did not add anything in the budget for this. I'm using resources I have. I'm using the special educators from my pool. I already have some at the alternative campuses anyways. Yeah. I'm consolidating into one. But I have to look at my case before I make decisions about where I'm putting people in. I have to look at caseloads, child count. I need to look at the data before I make those decisions. But no, there's no new money being spent here.
So no new costs at all in the budget?
I did not add any budgets for this.
Okay,
no.
Okay.
And actually, I'm hoping that this move, especially we no longer have to support North Campus for students, which means no busing, which means no food. I'm consolidating it into Sudbury, Sudbury, as we all know, is a beautiful school. It really is. It's really wonderful. And so, anyways, and I already talked about the permanent placement, Renee. It's not. So you can move forward. It's not a permanent placement. I want to say what I do want to say is. The data, the behavioral data is reviewed. I would think of it as like intervention cycles, where we look at the data at the end of an intervention cycle, and then we make assessments and plans. And like one of the things that Allen Street in our Q&A, one of the biggest challenges they have is sometimes students get really anxious when they're getting ready to return back to the general education, and they kind of sabotage. So we have to plan for that. It's a good problem to have, because they don't want to leave. But the goal is to get them the tools and the skills to get them with their non-disabled peers and being successful. And eventually, this program will want to get them ready for OB. And get them going. Okay. I've already said huge on family involvement in this. So that's a big part of our goal in this special services is family-centered practices, family-centered IEPs. We now do I don't need to go into everything I've done. I can do that another time. Go ahead. And yeah, I've talked a little bit about this. It's all about community support for families. It does, if a student is struggling at NESHB or OCA, they can have a disproportionate impact, especially if it's safety or if it's threat assessments, or they can have a disproportionate impact on their school communities if they're not getting what they need. And we have a site for them to go to get what they need in return. Everybody wins here. So this NESHB will win, OCA will win, Lothrop will win, if we can get this working and get it working well, which I'm confident we can. And I'm planning on this to begin in the fall of 2026. So there will be a lot of work over the summer. I'll have some teams. We have some ideas, and we're excited for this.
You indicated that we have out-of-district placements. Are you hoping to return everybody back through this, or?
It's not necessarily my. So we have no out-of-district placements that we've done right now. Every out-of-district placement has gone through the state. So the state when I have out-of-district meetings, I meet with Rutland Mental Health, I meet with DCF, I meet with the state coordinator, and I meet with the family. I go to these a large part of my job is to go to these huge update meetings to find out where the student is at. And I'm always I need to be there, because when the student returns, I have to have an educational plan for them. And so yes, we do have out-of-district placements that have gone through the local interagency team, the state interagency team, and they have said a higher level of care is needed, and they've sent it off. We actually don't pay for that. When it goes through SIT, our RNESU does not pay for that. But when they theoretically get what they need, if it's a long-term bed or a short-term bed, either way, when the student returns to the community and the family, the school team, needs to be ready.
Okay.
And this therapeutic placement is a great option if the general if NESHAB is too big and is going to be overwhelming, going from a very restrictive environment to a school. Right? This is a good stepping point and we do have a situation that I can't speak about publicly, but I do have a case that this is appropriate for.
Okay.
When that does happen.
Thank you.
So, Brian, it sounds amazing. When you give examples of students from different schools, I haven't heard you say Barstow. Is this because it's not for Barstow students, or is
this is an RNESU? If Barstow had a need and it would fit, we would talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. The challenge, of course, is transportation. But if we have a need, we will talk.
Okay.
The transportation can't be a reason not to have a placement.
Right.
We will provide transportation if it's their least, if it's what the student.
The SU would provide transportation to students at
Right.
Barstow to Sudbury, and that Sudbury.
It would be just it would be just like if we said VAC was the least restrictive environment and they could no longer be at Barstow.
Right.
If that's what the team said, we would transport a Barstow student to VAC or Allen Street,
Right.
And we were to Allen Street for a Barstow student.
Okay.
We would do the same thing for Sudbury. It's just much easier to transport in district. So, a challenge is just being logistics, not meaning we wouldn't do it. But yeah, I would say if there was a need at Barstow, this would be considered.
I mean, in the long run, it would end up saving the district money, but more importantly, the student would be able to be home on a regular basis as opposed to having to go someplace else in the state or having to drive several hours each way to get to a place where we can provide the same services right next door.
Yeah, yeah, it would be much closer than Baird. I don't know about VAC, but it would be, we would be able to do it. So, yeah.
I have a couple of, I'll call them definitional questions.
Sure.
Basically to help me answer questions in the grocery store.
Yes.
You're talking about students with behavioral and emotional needs, correct? Could you describe, you briefly mentioned it, but it went by me, the current Sudbury program, the students that are going back, and what?
Yeah. So our students that are currently at Sudbury have developmental and intellectual disabilities.
Okay.
They have a high level of need, and the team there has done a wonderful job. After much thinking and deliberation about the impact of the students at Sudbury, I did make the decision to move and really what's going to happen is the IEP teams are going to meet with those families and we're going to talk about what the options are, and we are going to have elementary life skills at NESHAB, which I don't want to predetermine anything, but most families will probably choose to that similar programming at NESHAB.
Okay, thank you. And then this is something I should know already, but I don't. The Foothills program, I don't know what.
Yeah, it's Michael Ruppel's credit recovery that he offers, at the high school level.
Thank you. When you were talking about cooking the food, nature-based learning, and maker spaces and all that, and it reminded me of back in ancient history, the Foxcroft Farm program that we used to have.
Yeah,
which I thought was absolutely wonderful. And I was wondering maybe Ann Young might be somebody to talk to.
Oh, that'd be great. I have been thinking about farm to school to farm because Sudbury and Whiting there are opportunities. So any names and anything we could do on I want to raise trout. That's kind of my passion, but
Yeah.
I know schools raise chickens too. So, but don't tell Brenda.
Yeah, she really would be a great
I'll
resource.
text her
Thank
right
you.
now.
Yeah, Brian's raising
Brian's
chickens.
already on it.
And then my last question is probably impossible to answer. But the slide on why is this happening, the first word is increased anxiety, trauma, emotional challenges. Is that increased like within 5 years from ago, or?
So, and I think we're seeing so part of the increase is the intensity of the behaviors. So, so we're seeing more increased students who are going in and being unsafe, and causing physical harm to the facilities and to their peers and to their adults. So we're seeing more of that, but we can look at the child count and see that our students, actually our students with emotional disturbance have actually dropped slightly, but the overall number is still heading up, and that's the disability area. But we have there's another disability area called other health impairment for students with significant ADHD that also present the behaviors that can be harmful, that they could need some extra help with.
So this is beyond the scope of your already considerable job. So in this sense, it's an unfair question, but do we have any theory on that? I mean, why is this happening? Or the schools have to deal with society's problems.
Yeah.
It's a microcosm.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's many layers to it. I think in RNESU, and I'm from St. Johnsbury, rural poverty is a thing. So there's the socioeconomic dynamics of it. I think there's less supports out there. We're struggling to get our families mental health. There's huge waiting lists. There's increased amount of we're seeing increased amount of addiction. We have a lot of families that have the grandparents are caring for their grandchildren. But I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's many things that are putting pressures on families and are impacting students' growth and development.
Thank you very much.
But that's my opinion. That's my soapbox. My opinion.
I would agree with that.
Any other questions for Brian?
These are elementary age students, K through 6.
So the target is K through 6.
Yeah.
I also don't want to put a. I also, if there were a 7th grader that had an OV, it wasn't an OV wasn't successful, and this made sense. I don't want to put. Say we'll never take a 7th grader. Mm-hmm. We probably can't take a pre-K student because we're not licensed. But
And also that's what their work is in pre-K, is to learn all of
Yes.
those skills.
yeah, if we do it well, then our continuum of support will move us in the right direction and have those impacts, as Renee's pointed out, in the in our graduation rates, especially graduation rates for students with disabilities.
Right.
Well, I wish you every success with this.
It's really important.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to our last presentation, which is intervention plan proposal presentation. Is that you too?
That's myself and Ryan.
Okay.
Okay, can you see the gatekeeper to instructional response team?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I will quickly gloss over so Debbie can get to presenting. So just a reminder, starting off with our global ends, these are the ones that it hits, largely our curriculum instruction and assessment. Because this is focused on our ESD process and something that is going to be happening on a regular basis, we really isolated the first 3: attendance, academic performance, and SEL. And so again, tying this into the EQS, we wanted to make sure that we address the tiered system of support, whether it's academic or behavior, so that way our students can reach proficiency and the performance standards. And so we start from Vermont has a multi-tiered systems of support document that is it's a framework, and so this is where we start all of our information from, because it's a system that works, and it is designed for us to really help our students once we identify that they have certain needs. And so I wanted to make sure that I brought in the language of response to intervention, as well as the multi-tiered system of support, because these are items that you're going to hear a lot of: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And so tier 1 is basically what you see for most of our students. It's high quality school-wide programming and supports. And Debbie will get into something called Tier 1 Plus. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But this is basically what we expect our classroom teachers to be able to deliver on a regular basis. Tier 2 is really for students who need that extra help. And so it's designed to be delivered in a small group. I think, Debbie, you mentioned that the sizes are anywhere from like 4 to 5 students at any one time. And these are interventions that can be delivered for specific needs within each student. And then tier 3 is the intensive intervention that could be individualized based on student need. We also wanted to bring in, again, the language about the educational support team, or ESTs, because that is really our first, it's among our first steps, making sure that our students have what they need in order to be successful within our classrooms. Because as we have learned, the educational support team, if a student is put on an EST plan, it's not just that the student is not being successful within what it is that we're providing within the school. According to the state, it's actually something that the system has to look inward. They have to reflect upon what is it that we are not able to provide to this particular student, and then how can we, the system, support the student in making sure that they are able to reach what they need to be able to do, whether it's accommodation, remedial services, or additional supports, and who's going to deliver it, how we're going to develop the strategy, how we're going to collect the data, and then how are we going to report that out to both our teachers and to the student families. So, Debbie, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you here to describe our current intervention system.
Great, thank you, Renee. And to sort of connect a couple of dots for you. So, Brian, the program that Brian spoke about just prior to me, he spoke about that like highest intensity program, and think about our MTSS system as the program that Brian is speaking about is at the very top of that triangle, not even the whole triangle. I would say it's at the very top of that triangle, and we're talking less than 5%, more in the 1 to 2%. I mean, you're talking a really small number. So the intervention system that I'm going to speak about today are all of the things, like Brian said. We don't just say, hey, this isn't working, this kiddo, we're sending them to this program. We have this set of this intervention system and this tiered system of supports that is in place prior to any actions where we would send a student out. So we're going to primarily be looking through the lens of academic right now, because we're looking at refining our current system. That said, there is already we already have an intervention system in place, and it aligns with that multi-tiered system of supports. And we're looking at, and they very much mirror each other. There's data collected, teams that come together. We collect more data points, we make a plan, we try something else, we come together on a regular basis. And those systems have been in place, I would say, so 2019 is when the state of Vermont launched the guide that Renee spoke about. And RNESU started to come on board around the time of the pandemic. And then we've been sort of increasing and developing a stronger understanding of the data points that we should collect and the processes. And we're at a point right now where we want to make we're proposing another shift to our system or refinement where we are thinking, so right now, as I mentioned, we have, or actually it's best to think about our current system. Our current system right now, and it was a good move initially back in 2020. Our intervention system used to be a system of, we had supports in buildings, and there wasn't really data connected to how students receive those supports. So it might have been, and I'm actually even speaking to back when I was in the classroom, sort of like whoever gets to the interventionist first with their case of which students need that data. So the system that we went to in the early 2020, that sounds like forever ago, was that we used our education support teams, and that's sort of a team in each school that's representative of different folks in the building, your school counselor, your principal, your classroom teacher, and then sometimes an interventionist at some point, a special educator, a nurse, there could be Rutland Mental Health, lots of people you have like a core team, and then you sort of bring on others as well. And they sort of determined, based on what happened prior to that referral coming in, as to whether or not we moved a student forward. As I mentioned before, it was, whoever got to the interventionist first and said, hey, my kiddo needs help here. So the EST team was a team that said, well, gosh, it doesn't look like, as Renee put up the triangle, it doesn't look like we've done enough intervention in that universal, in that green, to support sending a student forward. And a lot of that was due to capacity, because we only have so many interventionists. And when you saw that triangle, we really shouldn't have, we should only have, it's about 30% of our students sort of in that yellow band. So you have to have some sort of system for doing that. So we did use our EST system as a gateway to intervention. It was good at the time because it did encourage our schools to start providing that what we call Tier 1 Plus. That's sort of like everyone gets that initial instruction, and then there are times sort of built in the day where you can pull those other students that may need a little bit of extra help. You gather data and whatnot. The challenge with that is that sometimes students waited for the support too long because they were sent back to try more things in the classroom. That also teachers had to sort of build a case before the intervention began. Data collection was a barrier because we didn't have any programs, so that just wasn't something that was easy. So it was sort of like, well, your data's okay, but we didn't have the tools for the teachers. And we also, as you can imagine, when intervention isn't happening, then those learning gaps just widen. So we also know that when we look at our benchmark assessments, our screeners in the beginning of the school year, we know that overall in RNESU, and it differs at grade levels, we often have over 50% of our students that are performing below benchmark on our screeners. Now what that means is that that's that risk level. So we have a benchmark of that sort of says, on benchmark means that their risk is relatively low, and instruction should just continue. Below benchmark or well below benchmark says that we really need to pay attention here and start providing some extra supports for these students, that tiered supports based on what they need. And we have this sort of large number of students that are at risk, yet we did not have good data collection prior to the last couple of years. We didn't really map out what that tier 1 plus should look like. We also have not had good measures when you are providing intervention, whether it be at that tier 1 plus in the classroom or outside of the classroom. You should be progress monitoring and just checking how things are going. And we were asking for that to be done, but we didn't really have great tools in order to provide that for teachers. So we also we didn't have good entrance criteria or exit criteria. And so students often remained on EST for multiple years without thinking about, do we need to move forward for to check for a specific learning disability, or are they ready to go back to that tier 1 plus? So those were sort of where we're at right now. So what we're looking at for a new plan for our district is our admin team is working around thinking at all times about these three questions. What do we want students to know and be able to do? How will we know if they have not learned it? And what do we do if they have not learned it or they already know it? So if you think about that progress monitoring, that's exactly what we're talking about. We have to really be specific about what we want students to know and be able to do. And then we have to have a measure to know how we know that they've learned it. We have those things now in K through 8 for both math and for reading. So we have those tools that we can identify we can answer those 3 questions. So the other piece that what we're looking at is that instead of teachers collecting different data points and collecting them all up together, bringing their case to the EST team, sometimes waiting for a meeting for no fault on anyone except for we've got to pull all the people together. Actually, our schools are very good at pulling those meetings together. It still takes time to do all of that. So we are looking at a system where we take our screening data at the beginning of the school year. We do an all hands on deck approach to get that screening done really quickly in the fall. And we then sort of sit down and let's imagine that we have a classroom of 20 students. And we're looking at that screening data with those students, and let's just say let's go with 50% that are working below benchmark. So we have 10 students that are working below benchmark, and then let's just go with the 30%. Let's say we have 6 of those students that are working working sort of in that tier 1 plus. They are just a little bit below, but they're not working well below. And then we have sort of some students that are either on benchmark or above benchmark. So what we do is we take that data, and instead of waiting to provide tier 2 intervention after we've collected lots of different things, we instantly send those students to intervention. The idea is that a kindergarten student coming in to our school is able to receive intervention by the 3rd or 4th week of school, because we have the data points now to be able to do that. The idea is that we also develop, a lot of this is around scheduling. So we develop, and some of our schools already have WIN blocks. It's developing a dedicated time. During that time, you free up, if you will, your special educators, your interventionists, and obviously your classroom teachers, others that may be available, and the number of students in our the ones that are most at risk. Some are already receiving tier 3 supports. Then the next group that are most at risk will receive tier 2 supports. And then the remaining students, those that are needing that tier 1 plus that are just below benchmark, those students would receive dedicated skill building based on the data within the classroom from the classroom teacher. So instead of it being sort of like, I think this student needs some tier 2 supports, so let's start tier 1. Instead, it's this student needs tier 1 plus supports. Let's start that now and try to get that going before they ever need tier 2. So it really is, it shifts us more to an incredibly responsive system that looks at the data and then instantly provides what they need. And instead of, like, say we have a question about that student, let's not like wait to do a diagnostic test, get them in the intervention, and we can do the diagnostic test as, you know, in the second or third week, something like that. We can seek out more information. But the idea is that it provides entrance criteria into intervention. It will provide exit criteria because we already have a good system of intervention cycles that we already use. I've already gone on to some of our proposals. Sorry about that. I actually briefed this about 5 times in the last couple of weeks. So it really, we'll be using our STAR data, our DIBELS data, and we'll really be sort of, relying on those data points to make these groups.
Is DIBELS another standardized test?
Yes, thanks for asking, Kevin. That actually goes along with our new Amplify program. It's a K6 screener next year. DIBELS will include up to 8th grade. So that will completely align with Amplify. STAR has both ELA and math along with that. In the DIBELS primarily, well, not primarily, it does look at those basic reading skills, those phonics skills. And so it's still important to recognize if that is missing in the upper grades, because while students may have a level of comprehension, if they do not have that automaticity or there's any missing pieces in those phonics skills, even though they may appear to comprehend well, when you get into that higher level of vocabulary and you're actually reading about science to learn, it becomes much more difficult. So a student could look like they're doing okay, and then when they get to those older grades, and that is likely why we see sort of that we grow and then we drop off with our data when we get to high school. So what are some of the things that I talked about a lot of these already. We're going to have to schedule this time to make sure that it happens. We will be progress monitoring based on a schedule of whether a student needs Tier 1 plus or Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports. We also be looking at the fidelity in the intervention. And this is not about the teacher. This is about the systems that support this. So this is about I was using Brian actually in a couple of the presentations. So Brian, principal over here, decides to start using, he would not do that, starts to, use his interventionist because we have no subs, right, for subbing. Then it's going to show on the fidelity tracker that intervention isn't happening regularly. So that's where Brian, as the principal, looks at this and says, oh my gosh, look, we're taking intervention away from kiddos in order to look at subs. We've got to come up with something different. If we find that there's some scheduling where students are not, we have intervention scheduled right after lunch and kiddos we didn't leave enough time for them to come inside. We realized we took a 30-minute block and it now ends up being something like 18 minutes. That's a big deal. We've got to figure out how we do that a little differently. So making sure that we are gathering all of that data, and the intention is to make the data simpler for what we're collecting rather than what we were doing before. We have the intervention schedule right now that's actually pretty good. We revised it this year. We'll revise it next year to sort of tighten up our windows for assessment, as well as and we also won't stop intervention during those weeks of assessment. There's actually a way of, instead of progress monitoring, you sort of do those assessment windows in place of that. We also will need to articulate the percentage of students that would go to Tier 2, and then the remaining students would be in Tier 1 plus. We'll talk about students that are meeting benchmark or above benchmark in a moment. And then, as Renee mentioned, that we'll have we'll have tier 2 and tier 3 group sizes sort of all sorted out. Now, a lot of that will also be, we're gonna sort of set the commonalities across the district, and then we have to operationalize that in our buildings based on like many different things, staffing, schedules, and things like that. So, next slide, Renee, please. So what are the things that we need to have in place in order for this to be successful? So part of this is making sure that we have strong instructional leadership. So we've talked with the board before about the through line, thinking about how we already know that our teachers support our learners to be able to learn. Our principals are supporting our teachers to be able to support our children, our students, and then of course central office is supporting our principals. So it's everyone working together, believing in this plan, and then also making sure that the plan is simple enough so that principals are able to know when the intervention systems are happening. They should be a big part of who receives the intervention. They're more of the gatekeeper than EST used to be, gatekeeper based on our plan. We also need to make sure that everything is articulated well. I believe that we'll be able to do this much better because we have these data points, and I can't thank the community and the boards enough for supporting the programs that were purchased for us. It's been a ton of work, but every day we discover how this is going to benefit us. It's going to be a long process, but we're on the right track. We have to protect that instructional time that I spoke about. We already have sort of aligned windows. I mean, the good news with all of this is that this is a refinement. We've been working on this for about 5 years now, so this is like the next step of refinement. So this isn't a full new program that we're trying to work on with everyone. And then making sure that we're sort of, all following through on this. And then when we're not, we find out what's not working in our system and how we sort of mitigate that. So, and we won't go through this, but Renee, if you want to just maybe click on I've already developed sort of a schedule that sort of shows the green is like when we sort of pause, and actually if you start at the top, Renee, I won't go through each thing, but sort of the yellow, anything that's in the yellow is when we're doing our screeners. The blue tells when we all come together and meet and decide what the plan is for the next cycle. The interventionist at the very beginning or end of a cycle will meet with me. It's sort of best to do it then before we get into a cycle and then have to break for a meeting. And then, when we pause for different things, but we've been very intentional, really every single day of the school year for next year is mapped out within this, except for the last couple of weeks. I think it goes to June 4th, I think, something like that. I don't remember the exact date. June 11th. Oh, it just says the end of the marking period, but it really maps we have it mapped out pretty well right now, but we have a lot of things that are like windows. And you actually start, in some cases, pause for 2 weeks when we really don't need to pause anywhere for 2 weeks for something like that. So, any questions? I know we've talked a lot at you all tonight.
Yeah, I have another one. Renee, this is a question probably more for you.
Okay.
I love the idea of going straight from the test scores to the interventions without the delays. I think that's
It is the number one thing,
a
yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
And then using the data to follow students more closely. That's what we're gathering data for. I hope. My question is.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's more of a political fallout question. If the school is intervening, for lack of a better word, early and quickly with kids who don't score well, do you anticipate any backlash from parents whose kids score reasonably well and saying things like, why is this other kid getting special help when I want my kid to go to Harvard and I want them to go from the 92nd percentile to the 99th? So why aren't we getting special instruction for the superstar kids? Because parents who think that way tend to be very vocal and very persistent in making their demands. And is that an anticipated problem, or and how would you what would the response be?
So, Kevin, if you know any of those parents, please have them call me, because I need more of them to come and say what you just said. But what I would also say is, going back to, I think Debbie had it here. Where's the wind block? There it is. So that's the other piece is, number one, that extra enrichment could also happen during a what I need block.
That's the part.
And then two, the EST system. The EST system, if a parent wanted their student to have enrichment, they could actually request that there be an educational support plan for their student for enrichment. That being said, we should be accounting for that in the get-go too, because that should be part of Tier 1. And so the more that we're able to hear that and the more that we're able to plan for it, I think now that we have this, we have a common curriculum, we have a place to start from, and we know both the interventions for students who need that either remediation or extra support. We can also start providing different ways of being able to enrich that curriculum because we're starting from a common place.
And
Debbie, anything else?
Yeah, no, to piggyback on that, so our current program for Amplify, it currently has actually stretch activities for students in there. So we have, within that program, there's a ton of intervention tools as well as tools for enrichment within in the building or within that classroom. So, and we talk about all hands on deck, it's going to be looking at scheduling to, who may have flex blocks. There's never any extra time in schools, as we all know, but somebody having a flexible schedule, if we happen to have a classroom that has a large number of students that are sort of in that, on benchmark or above, and they need some extra support to work on whatever enrichment that is presented to them, they could come in, and even if it's checking in on those students, like, hey, how's your project going, or how's this working? A lot of the work that we do in Amplify is some students are working with the teacher at the table, others that are able to do it more independently, we're growing that and we're sort of checking in on them. So we do have a lot of those tools already in place.
Okay, great, thank you.
Other questions for anybody? All right, thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to board professional development, available trainings and conferences. We are part of the 25-26 Policy Governance Virtual Forum. The next one is tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, and the link to participate is in the RNESU calendar. Debbie, did you want to speak to that at all?
One topic that'll be covered tomorrow is the student representative on policy governance board. So I thought of Otter Valley right away.
Okay, yep.
Since you guys
We have 3.
You have 3? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So that would be good for Otter Valley to be there.
Okay. And then if there's any other discussion of specific RNESU board training needs, let us know. That's just going to kind of be on the agenda going forward. So that if you think of something that you want to have training on, let us know. We'll get that done. Executive limitations monitoring report. We have a monitoring report 2.1, treatment of students and parents and guardians. Can I get someone to make a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Thank you, Barbara. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Greg. Any discussion, questions? Do you want to speak to it, Renee?
Can you see the document? Sorry for being muted.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Okay, good. As I mentioned in our other board meetings, it's information that we provide to the parents, letting them know that when we're asking them for personal information about the student or about the parent, that we're asking it because we need it for not just for our own purposes for making sure that we're serving the students properly, but also for the state and for the federal government. We also want to make sure that we protect their information that we get. And then we also have a way to, if there is an issue that comes up for a student or a parent, that we have the ability to have a process for them to complain or for them to grieve. Also, that we have a way for families to communicate both with us. They are able to give us feedback, and we're able to provide information to them. Of course, we could always be better in finding ways to get information to families, and we'd like to receive as much feedback as we can. And then making sure that when there are issues where, like the budget or other major things that take place, that we're involving students, parents, and the community along the way. And then finally, to make sure that if we are able to identify barriers, or if we hear of barriers, that we're able to make sure that we're providing the ability to remove them so each student can achieve their full potential.
Great. Questions for
that's
Renee?
it.
Comments? Okay, not hearing any. All of those that approve the monitoring report 2.1, treatment of students and parents and guardians, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Perfect. We have approved monitoring report. Okay. We don't have our own board policy monitoring report, darn it. But we are going to move on to policies for action. The first one is a second reading, which we will adopt this policy. It has gone to both Barstow and the OVUU boards and been approved, which is CBTA, Behavioral Threat Assessment Team. Can I have someone make a motion to adopt the policy?
So, second.
Okay, Barbara and Kevin, discussion. Okay. All right. All of those in favor of adopting CBTA, Behavioral Threat Assessment Team, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Leo, did I hear you approve, or I can't hear you? I can't hear anything. Maybe his mic's not working. Is there a group chat that he can
Yeah,
type
he
into?
can. He has the ability to.
So
to
Leo,
type it in.
can you type in your answer to that, since we can't hear you, please?
You could also give a thumbs up.
Oh, that's
to
true. And if or a thumbs up.
and the react.
Yep.
Let's see. Leo
No.
says approved.
Approved. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Awesome. All right. Then that is
A floating phone.
yeah, a floating one. Well, that's good. All right. Moving on. So these are the next two policies are policies that we, if approved, will go to both boards. So this is the first reading. The first one is ISLM, selection of library materials. It is revised from an admin memo into a policy. Can I get someone to make a motion to approve?
I move we approve.
Barbara, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Debbie. Discussion. This is a policy we have not been able to move on recently. Is there any discussion that people would like to have about it? Okay, so, not hearing any, I will go ahead and take a vote. All those that approve ISLM selection of library materials, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Leo saying aye. All those, nays,
Nay.
and any abstentions?
And Greg's going to abstain again.
Okay, can you tell me why you're abstaining?
I'm not a fan of the topic, and so I don't want to specifically vote against it. And so that's the reason.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and vote yes, so that we can move it on, because we need 4 yeses in order to make this, adopted. So that is 4 people saying yes, Barbara, Debbie, Leo, and myself. 1 no, which was Kevin, and 1 abstention, which was Greg. But it will still move on to each individual board. Thank you for that. The next policy is IIBG, which is acceptable use of electronic resources in the internet. Again, this is a policy revised. There was an admin memo included for reference. Can I get someone to make a motion to approve?
I'll move.
So moved.
Debbie, Greg, do you mind being second? A second?
That's
Thank
fine.
you. All right, discussion.
Alexis, if there's anything you'd like to add to this about the policy, you are welcome to describe it.
Sure. So the acceptable use policy is essentially our baseline control that makes our use of technology lawful, safe, and manageable, most critically. It's a key policy. It has some primary goals of providing clarity around the appropriate online behavior and limiting access to harmful content that meets legal obligations. It gives the information on how staff and students handle student information and other sensitive data. It sets some cybersecurity minimum expectations. It demonstrates our required internet safety measures and governance that are tied directly to federal and state obligations. And it's what provides the authority for monitoring and investigating misuse, enforcing consequences, and preserving the availability and integrity of our data and systems. All of that bundled together essentially reduces the harm when things go wrong. To provide some quick background, if we had an acceptable use policy in, say, 1999, it likely would have been based on very slow internet access, maybe shared computer labs, simple messaging systems, maybe some guidance on username and password sharing, and if we were ahead of the times, blocking access to inappropriate websites, if that was possible, and avoiding risky downloads, basically where users could do and what they could send. The 2012 policy, which is the current one, the Children's Internet Privacy Act had come into the fore. High-speed internet and staff and student machines were much more typically used on a day-to-day basis. That all required stronger filtering and behavior expectations as compared to, a decade earlier. And so that policy reflects that and does a great job for when it was written. Today, we are in an entirely new universe of that. Our access, our work occurs at very high speeds, multiple channels. It goes through primarily cloud-based systems run by third-party vendors, interactive platforms, real-time messaging and social media, AI tools that retain user input and generate content instantly, typically without any kind of auditing capabilities or validity to what is produced. And that essentially shifts our risk as it relates to what this policy covers from where someone goes on the internet to what information is being entered into these systems and what content those systems are generating and spreading. And so what this update primarily does is adds in artificial intelligence and the key terms around that, and shifts the policy from a status of the policy simply exists to a governance cycle of the policy. And that's achieved with kind of checkpoints in there where we have to, check in on this annually and not let it kind of ride until the next big wave of something happens, because that wave is ongoing daily now. It explicitly includes AI system active monitoring, so we can have some chance of staying abreast of that. It extends safety controls from just, say, the internet to the internet and AI safety explicitly. It strengthens the alignment with the Children's Internet Protection Act, FERPA, and our other legal items that we meet. So FERPA, for example, and SEPA have components in them that basically say we need to reference them in this policy or we're not in alignment with them. So it does that too. It also strengthens language around training internally and vendor expectations around our data. And it adds AI-specific prohibitions around the entry or manipulation of confidential, personally identifiable or personal health information, not using that to also bypass filtering, monitoring systems, security systems, and speaks to the unacceptable use of AI for generating defamatory content, for example. And then the last thing with AI is it is a substantial risk enhancer from a data and security perspective. So this policy adjustment essentially recognizes the inherent higher risk associated. By that I mean a much more rapid loss of data and reputational harm when you use of AI systems and inputs. And so kind of the consequence piece on that is much more closely aligned with those kinds of outcomes. Additionally, I sent over, I'm sure you have access to it by now, basically a far more in-depth explanation of the changes themselves, why they're proposed and needed. And that's basically it.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Alexis?
I don't have a question for Alexis, but I have a comment about the policy.
Okay.
So on page 78 of the packet, which is the third page of the policy. Now I've lost. How have I done that? At the bottom of the page it says use of generative artificial intelligence resources. And then AI tools may be used for RNESU related purposes, including instruction, professional development, communication. This is a gaping opening into Pandora's box. It's an invitation for less motivated teachers to use AI to do their classroom preparation. Students will spot that from 100 miles away. And allowing that kind of thing to go on in the class and then telling students they have to do their own work is a disaster waiting to happen. AI is a tool that has to be used in a very limited means in the classroom, and we cannot expect students who don't like to read anyway to do their own work, think for themselves, do their own writing if the teachers aren't doing that as well. And it runs all across the board. I I have Gmail inserted AI into their, I think just this week, into their email protocols, and I got an offer to summarize an AI a conversation I was having with a friend of mine about the National Football Championship. So I had to go in and delete all the protocols for that so I could have normal conversations again. It's an insidious, horrible thing that's going to take over. We're going to have AI-generated email change bouncing around where nobody actually does any work or does any reading, and we cannot introduce it into the classroom for our kids. It's a straight road to human non-intervention in their own thought. It's just a bad thing.
Okay.
So are you suggesting to take that part of the policy out, Kevin? Or what are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we need to reword it to prohibit the use of AI in the classroom, particularly for teaching, and communication and professional development. I don't know, but all of that, I would say I would just insert the word "may not be used" for any. Yeah, may not instead of may be used for RNESU related purposes, including instruction, professional development, and communication. If you want that in the form of a motion, I move that the word "not" be inserted between the words "may" and "be" in section I, subsection A.
Can I just ask one question about that?
Sure.
Does that include like Chat GPT or whatever the hell that thing is called?
Yeah, they're all the same.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, okay. Well, no, I'm just asking
Yeah.
because I do know that sometimes that is used to help when you're trying to form your what.
Yeah, that's exactly what's wrong with it. You have to form your own thoughts in the classroom.
Okay, well, so I'm just curious if that prohibits that as well, because I know that has been used previously at RNESU. So I just want to make sure that if we're getting rid of everything, that includes that as well.
So, just for information, so AI has, as we all know, has been around for quite some time. And many of our programs that, for example, individualize work for students, like our Boost program, for example, it will, look at the data and determine sort of the next thing that students need to work on. So one of the challenges is that AI can be everything from like a program that's doing a job for us, right? That is sort of exponentially helping us to be able to help more students, to something that has the ability to be misused, if you will. So just putting that out I didn't write the policy, but just putting that out there is something to ponder.
I think AI is designed to be misused and to make us all dumber.
I don't disagree.
I have a question.
If
Well-
I might
Yep.
add something.
Yeah, go ahead, Alexis.
So there's a practical reason for that, why that's in there. And this isn't the policy, this is the, if I understand, you're referencing the inclusion of the procedures for employee and volunteer use of electronic internet artificial intelligence resources document. So that's in there because there is no practical way to do exactly what you've said. From a technical perspective, and certainly not from, agree, disagree. I tend to be much more towards your view of that as it happens. But I also know that from a technician point of view, that is a policing action that cannot be achieved today. AI is embedded in literally everything. Mm-hmm. Everything.
It's not embedded in human communication direct to each other yet. We don't have chips in our brains
Not yet. I would say the practical way that you could achieve that is essentially by removing all devices and internet access. Nothing short of that will eliminate it, in a classroom environment, and that's, certainly an option.
Well, that's an option I would
so-
support as well, but I don't think we should have language in our in our policies saying that it's okay to use AI in classroom instruction. Now, if somebody wants to reword the sentence so that the inescapable use of AI and some kind of, generative, I don't know what, is impossible to avoid, but we should explicitly prohibit teachers from using it to create instruction. And I don't think it belongs in professional development either. And interpersonal communication generated by AI is an invitation to phoniness. We shouldn't just passively accept that. And there are ways around this that students respond to the invitation to use their own minds. They do. They instinctively, or maybe by experience, know that AI is robbing them of their brain cells the more they use it. And it's our obligation to tell them you can overcome this, not to say, big tech is going to take over everything and, we're all going to be the serfs of big tech. Our job is to say, we're going to do our damnedest to prevent this from happening, even if we don't have the resources of Silicon Valley.
So I guess the way that I would respond is that within the policy, there is an expectation that we are monitoring this, that we are training them, that we are providing opportunities for them to learn about what it is that they're doing within their instruction. And then secondly, there's also enforcement expectations on our part, whether it's ourselves, whether it's other educators, or for students. My issue is that what I like to, make sure that all teachers and everybody within our system is that they are not using AI for any purposes, so that way people can purely rely upon the tools that they bring to the table, so that way our kids learn how to use them. Yeah, that would be awesome. But the second that they leave our building, the second that they start looking for jobs, the second they start competing for jobs or competing for colleges, AI, like Alexis mentioned, it's embedded in everything. And it could be that there is the opportunity for us to be able to catch a student up, like Debbie mentioned, because we have the resources and the students need to be able to, they need that additional help to catch them up 2 or 3 grade levels. There is the opportunity for us to be able to enrich our students' education. And so saying that we have to completely ban it within our own system would make our jobs, I believe, we would be less effective as a system if we completely banned it. And so if we are able to monitor it, and if we're able to make sure that people have the tools that they need to be able to serve our students, I think that's what this policy is aiming for us to do, is to understand that it's there, it can help us serve students better, but we have to be wary of it. The same thing can be true for high-speed internet in 2012. The same thing could be said for low-speed internet in 2002. And so I guess that's just my feedback on completely banning AI within our realm.
Well, Alexis just told us that there's no monitoring it, there's no tracking it, there's
no getting rid of it.
No, she said,
yeah, but there is output.
Say what she
So if a teacher or an administrator or somebody creates clearly some AI slop, and the kids are able to report that out, or the teachers see the professional development that we're providing and it's AI slop, then yeah, we need to be called out on it. And so it's not that you're monitoring it from the programs that are bringing it in, but the end result, whether it's our state testing, whether it's the things that we put in front of people will be able to tell that it's not human created.
For how long? My objection isn't even to the slop, and I disagree with Renee. I don't think I'm being a Luddite about the internet in 2012. I don't think that's a valid comparison. I think AI is a challenge to human intelligence and human dignity, and that we need to be teaching our kids. They're not going to fall behind and not be able to get into college because they can't use AI. In fact, AI is going to make them dumber and less able to do those things. We need to be teaching them to think for themselves, to do their own work, to exercise their minds, to learn to concentrate, which AI destroys, and to become thinking human beings. And the only way to do that is to do it by example. And to create, we talked earlier in this meeting about creating systems of or an expectation or an atmosphere of mutual obligation in a classroom where people feel like they're a community. AI destroys that too. The only way to teach kids that we're in this together, that I care about you, that I want you to be smarter, that we're treating each other with respect, is to take the machine out of it and do it as human beings, and to say you need to read this stuff, not have AI read it to you. You need to think about it yourself. You need to write out your responses yourself, because if you don't do those things, you're losing a part of what it is to be a human being, probably the most critical part of what it is to be a civilized human being. And we need to be at war with this stuff, because Silicon Valley's trying to eat our brains, and we need to stand up to it.
So can I say that in my experience, at least in the last couple of years, that there's an expectation, at least in the high school, that kids will write their own stuff, and that teachers are looking for chat GPT or something that is IA generated. They know what these kids are able to do, and if a kid provides something that looks well out of their realm, they're going to call those kids on it.
So why have a policy that says it's okay to do those things then?
Alexa, before I don't know that, so I'm going to let Alexis answer that question.
Yeah, so the real risk of having, say, a blanket ban on that is a couple-fold. One, you remove the utility of AI, which isn't all about content generation, right? It's also about data crunching and getting us highly useful information much, much faster that helps students and can help drive our costs where we want them to be as well. So there's that. The second piece of that is if we don't have a regime around AI, which will be used by students and staff no matter what's said in this room or we put on paper, then we're failing to provide a governance structure around it when it inevitably is used. And I say inevitable because, as you said, it's in your email. It's also hardwired into all of the latest computers that are being generated. I mean, when I say everywhere, it's everywhere. It's not. I think what you're really talking about is really a curriculum and instruction question, and less a policy question about whether or not it can be used at all. From my perspective, it's about putting a rule set around the inevitable existence of it in our system. Whether or not we say it's okay to use, it will be present. So you could change the language where you shift that very first sentence, right? And you make everything in that section I under it. And you basically say, you go from AI tools may be used, a blanket statement, to when AI tools are approved for use, and then you have users shall, users may not, etc. So that doesn't dictate that they have to be used, but it envisions a reality that they do exist, may be used, and in fact are likely being used regardless. But it gives us some structure around it and some hands to grapple with it if an issue does arise, which it will also occur.
Okay, that's moving in the right direction. But I don't want to repeat myself too often, but it can't be used for instruction. It's imperialistic. I can't emphasize that enough. It's not something like, oh, it's going to give me a few hints to do a better job preparing my math class. It's going to take over. Math is probably a bad example. Anything requiring reading, writing, interpretation, it's far better to make kids write 100 words in the classroom where they actually have to sit with a pen in their hand and think for themselves and write something than it is to say, oh, go learn about Shakespeare with AI. They won't. AI will just spit it out and then you get this fake product. You got to have people thinking for themselves, and you got to model thinking for yourself to have kids respond to that.
So, the question before us, I would like to answer Alexis's question. She gave you some different verbiage that you said move the needle.
Yes.
So I'm curious to know what everyone else's ideas around changing the verbiage to something like what she said, and I hope she wrote it down.
Well,
Or we'll capture.
I wasn't satisfied with it.
Okay, well, I realize that, but I guess my point is I don't think you're going to be satisfied with anything, to be completely honest. Let's be honest about that. You would like it to be gone completely. Alexis has made a point, and she is right.
I need to correct you. I don't think, I agree that it can't be gone completely, that it's embedded in systems. I take her point that it's embedded in computers. What I wanted to be prohibited from is the classroom, which is certainly a doable thing.
So, Debbie, or excuse me, Laura, in response to your question, I like what Alexis said when she phrased the editing when approved for use.
Okay.
Because then that, catches some of the things that Renee said was, we don't want them making their lessons plans this way, so that clearly wouldn't have been an approved for use approach.
Right. Okay.
Where is the verbiage inserted?
She said, I think it's at the bottom of page 78 of the packet.
Okay.
Which is it's the third page of the
actual proposal. Yeah. So, because my thought is that that verbiage that she uses, I don't think that we're going to answer this tonight. I mean, because we're already past our 2-hour curfew, and we do have a few other things that we need to get to. My question to all of you is if we ask that verbiage to be entered and then bring it back to us next month, and we look at it again, because I don't think this has to be approved immediately, right? We're under no obligation to have this done in the next 2 minutes or next month or anything like that. So I would just like to, and then we can discuss this in more detail. Yeah, go ahead, Debbie.
My question is 2 meetings ago when this policy came to us, I asked have we had legal counsel review it, because it's not based on a model policy of the VSBA, which are vetted through lawyers. So I just want to see if we had any our attorney, Dina, take a look at this.
We forwarded it to Dina after our last meeting, and I guess we haven't followed up with her on it. So I know that was Melinda and I did it like the next day. So I can follow up with her again on it.
So why don't we do that? Because it sounds like we should probably check with Dina and then talk about the verbiage that Alexis brought up, and then we discuss it again at our next meeting.
And I have another
sure, go ahead.
A piece of information. I know that there has been pressure on the AOE to issue a policy on this very topic, So I think it'd be worth checking in with them to see how imminent this is. Is it, I mean, if it were coming out in the next 6 months or something like that, I think it'd behoove us to wait to see what their policy is. It's a complicated, important topic. I'm kind of amazed that we haven't revised our policies since 2012. It's incredible when I think about the changes in the internet since 2012. At the same time, I feel like this is such an important topic. This policy is really important. I'd like to have a little bit more time for a legal review to check with the AOE to see what they're planning to do, and then go from there.
Alexis?
Yeah, just real quick, I want to make sure we're talking about two different documents, right? One is the policy, which just essentially includes references to AI, so that is captured. The one with the more/less detail is the use of electronic resources. And there is substantial risk in conflating the two of those. To my knowledge, there is no model policy forthcoming from the state that they've passed on to anyone that I've heard of.
Okay.
I can find that.
So I think at this point, I think we would just like to if everybody is okay, and if Debbie and Greg are okay with removing their motion, we'll just wait until next month so that we can have more information. And as you said, Alexis, there are two separate documents, but I think we need to be looking at both of them together. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. Greg and Debbie, are you okay with removing your? Okay.
Yeah, rescinding is fine.
All right, thank you. All right, so we will move that to next month. And then it is 7:51. Can I get someone to make a motion to approve our meeting until 8:15? I don't think we'll get there, but I know, sorry. You joined this group, sorry.
I'm not making the motion.
Oh no,
I'm making it, yeah.
Kevin did.
That's fine.
Okay, are you? I know, no, but you're over here going.
You're obligated.
I know, right? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Lori, one
Yeah.
quick interruption. I do need to drop off. I was not expecting going this long.
Me neither.
I think we got through all the voting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's fine. We did.
Okay, so sorry, thank you, and
Nope.
I'll be at the next one.
All right. Thanks a lot, Craig.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still in compliance because we have 5 members. All right, so our next item is the superintendent evaluation. I would like everyone to review our monitoring report compliance for superintendent performance. That is something that we do now because we do, that is how we actually determine that the superintendent is doing his or her job, in this case his. And then I wanted to follow up just to make sure that everybody was, if there was anything you wanted to include in the evaluation. We don't really write an evaluation anymore because we are policy governance. We use those monitoring reports to make sure that he's in compliance. And in so doing, then we, that's kind of the evaluation now, I believe. That's how we've done it in the past. So, I just wanted you guys to review those monitoring reports, both from BUU, OVUU, and RNESU. They are in the packet. Is there any discussion that we need to have on that?
I'd like to ask Renee a question, and I don't want to put an undue burden on you. But is there any way you could prepare a short, quick summary of the use of data in the last year?
For the next time around?
Yeah.
Or like in the next
Yeah.
5 minutes?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No, next time. I think you could maybe
But
next time,
I
but
don't,
not
you
as
know-
part of his superintendent evaluation.
Okay. Yeah.
You want a presentation on data? Is that what you're asking?
No. eventually, but
Like our increased efficiencies and things like that, and how we're using it.
yeah, never mind. We can do that another time.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I just yeah. If you want to bounce that around some more, I'd be happy to discuss it with you. I just want to make sure that we're not.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
Is that fair? Okay. All right. So
Yeah, I mean that'd be part of Global Ed. So yeah,
Right.
so the presentation would be a good idea.
yeah, and we'd probably do that probably closer towards the end of towards June, May or June.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. If you have more things about that you want to discuss, let us know. All right. So superintendent evaluation. Is there anything anybody needs to say about any of the monitoring reports, compliance, things like that? I don't think so,
No.
but I just wanted to verify. Okay, then I'm going to move on. Advocacy, Rural Carrier Connected Collaborative. Do you need to say anything about that, Renee?
Yeah, I'll just be really quick. So, as mentioned in Otter Valley, we were selected. We're one of 10 districts from across the country who were selected to participate in a 15-month, fellowship where we're going to be able to pull together community resources that we have within the school to really design our Otter Valley middle school and high school, and because it's going to involve 7th and 8th grade and career connected learning, Barstow will also be included. So we're going to want to make, the goal is to create a system where our students are more engaged, that we are creating a system where students do feel that belonging, that they have agency, that they're able to advise us on what they need, but at the same time recognizing that we are an area of Vermont that have a lot of community members, that have a lot of businesses that are really excited about being able to host our students, whether they're still in high school or once they graduate, and being able to create a pipeline from as early as 5th or 6th grade to understanding what's available for students in college and career and life as they matriculate through our system. And so I have my first meeting with them tomorrow night. Michael and I have our first meeting with them combined on Friday. And then our big kickoff meeting is next week. So once we have a press release, we will be able to distribute it far and widely.
Awesome.
Do you have any idea how many schools nationally applied for this program?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can ask when we meet tomorrow.
Might be good for the press release. I just want to congratulate you on it. And this is a great thing for our system, and the fact that we're one of 10 in the nation to get this is a gold star for you. It's a big deal, and we should be very, very pleased with it.
Thank you for that. It was definitely a team effort. Lots of people contributed to it. And I think it's really important for us to be able to stand out, given that we don't have a tech center standing right next to us. We have two really good ones that we send our students to, but there's often a wait list for the things that kids really, really want to do. And so we have to be able to provide them with those opportunities along the way if they're not able to attend.
Great. Okay, Act 73 continued discussions. There's links on this for the final findings and recommendation report from the Commission of Future of Public Education. And then there's also the AOE press release with links to 10 reports. I don't think there's anything new that's happened up there. I mean, they're taking testimony, and I'll still say that Act 73 is imploded because they don't know what they're doing yet. So just because I've been told that it has not been imploded, but it has. So, moving on. OVUU, BUU board report. BUU, you want to go first? What are you guys working on? You have a passed budget, or at least a budget to approve budget?
Budget
Okay.
approved, yep.
Anything else?
Well, that's been pretty much the focus. In that approved budget, I should say, we decided to expand our preschool.
We heard about that.
Yeah,
Yep.
offering. So Next year, it looks like the registration's going very well. Next year, we'll be offering 2 full days for 3-year-olds and 3 full days for 4-year-olds.
Which we do currently over here.
Which you do currently,
Yep.
so we're bumping ours up to full-time because of the demand, so.
Great.
Yep.
Awesome sauce. Okay, OVU board report. We also have a budget that we are putting forward to our voters.
Yes.
We are also moving 2 of our preschool programs into the elementary schools. That has been controversial in one town.
Yes, I've been reading about that
Yes.
in the paper. Mhm.
Yes, so we'll see how that all
Unfolds.
plays out. We'll be talking about it again on February 3rd for one of them. And other than that, I don't know that, I mean, I think we're just happy that we have an approved budget to pass out. And it's less than 3%, so we're very excited about that as well.
Good. 3% of ed spending percent?
It's a 2.92% increase in expenses over last year.
Oh, that's even,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. So thank you for taking some more of the RNESU budget for us. That
Yes,
helped.
we appreciate, well, we
Yeah.
are having a little population boom over there.
So we did.
Yeah.
Oh, and we did add back to get to the 2.92. We did add back $104,000 to our budget for Renee to use as he saw fit.
What?
Yeah. Well, it's a long story. We'll talk about it. Anyway, we won't bore you with it. So, yeah.
Just to sort of, speaking about the Barstow expansion for pre-K going from that 3 days a week to 5 days, correct? Just so for the public, it's a 6-hour program. I think they're 7:45 to 1:45.
Yeah, well, so that they don't
it's
impede with buses.
It's a 6-hour program.
Yeah.
Okay,
So.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Superintendent informational report. You don't have anything, do you?
The only thing I want to mention is that thank you to RNESU, we were able to move forward with being able to feed our families over winter break, and we were able to do so with 300 meals a day on each of the Mondays. So it was very well received, and we're very thankful for your permission to begin with, but then also for the anonymous donor who helped us 2/3 of the way to funding it. So
that's awesome.
Very proud that we're able to do that.
That is awesome. All right. Our next RNESU meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, February 18th here at 5:30. And if there's nothing else for us to talk about, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:01.
Yep.
All right, Barbara. She'll approve that one, and Leo's seconding it. Okay. Thank you. All right. Bye.